Greetings, folks. Once again, driving home from work. So I'm in the bottom corner here, sticking my head out there. And I want to continue with talking about the Jesus return, in particular about where it's depicted in Revelation. Okay, So I was gonna start with Revelation 12, because that was the one. Well, Revelation 11 and 12, of course, is the return. And I've talked about it before many times. And technically, the return was in phases. And or stages, or and you can see them outlined as the seven thunders, which is in chapter 10 of Revelation. And if you look up that word thunder, you will see that in the Greek it actually means to roar, because it's referring to the Lion of Judah. And so it's something that's coming out of the mouth of the Lion of Judah. And in other words, and he's in the form of a beast, a lion, because he's the king of the mammals. If you, however you look at it, lion depicts the king of the jungle, right? That's what they say about lions, and so that's why it was depicted that way. And Lucifer is also depicted as a lion at times too, and they're also both depicted as kings, but the kind of crown that Jesus has is different than the crown that the space alien Luciferians have. Their crowns are the crowns of the human countries. That's the only thing they're kings of, because they influence the kings of the countries. Kings and the queens, it's not really, it's not gender-based. So the Lion of Judah is because it said that in the prophecy that Jesus came from the tribe of Judah. In other words, his vehicle that was engineered for him by the next level, prepared to do that task. However they did that, with some kind of artificial insemination. Tiendo wondered about that. Some kind of, genetic manipulation of, so that it was, maybe it really was an immaculate conception, in the sense that there was no fornication, which is just intercourse among Mary and her husband, as the story goes, Joseph. So there didn't have to be, because we wouldn't have known that before the dawning of the 20th century, 1900s, when the whole understanding of genetics came to be, and also artificial insemination came to be a reality, test tube babies. See, that's why the religions form around ideas that become superstitions, because they don't know the technical reality that's happening to the things that are being depicted. And Jesus was able to talk about things because the next level prepared that vehicle to actually be able to receive that information and comprehend it and teach it. But he had to teach it at the level of where the students were in those more primitive-minded vehicles and more primitive minds, less developed. And we are all less developed than we could be, than we can be. And the way we become more developed is by drawing on Tiando's mind, their teachings, their books, their audio tapes, their videotapes, and all that information. Like T said at one point in an audio tape Kathy and I listened to recently, that there were no contradictions. And she knew that we students, some of us, consciously or subconsciously, would think that there were contradictions. And the only reason we saw it that way is because we didn't realize that the next level was spoon feeding us. Like in that, I don't know if the show was Mary Poppins, where a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Well, that's a real reality. They need to give us doses of something that is titillating to the mind in order for us to recognize the reality of the next level more and more, which is the medicine, and to accept the lesson program. The medicine is actually the lesson program. They talk about it in the Revelation as it's sweet to the taste, like honey, but it's bitter in the stomach. And the reason it's bitter in the stomach is because once you get past the sweetness of it, that's attractive to the mind, it's difficult to deal with, because you know that what it means is that you're going to have to take things away from your vehicle that your vehicle wants, that your vehicle's been trained to want. Trained by the mind, from the strains, the genetic strains, the ancestry, so the family strains as well as the mind strains, and trained by our experiences in this vehicle's growing up and what was given to it. And it doesn't mean that the next level makes things up to just satiate us so that then they can tell us, attract us with like highfalutin information so that we'll behave and, do what they say about abstaining from, substance usages that affect our endorphins and things, all the chemical reactions that we get from ingesting various substances, or from participation in sexuality, that all produces hormones and and stimulus that it's all drugs. It's all a drug, and it's got usefulness. All those things have potential usefulness, and some of the usefulness of them is to recognize the addictive nature of them and decide to actually abort the usage of those things that are stimulating to us, to help us have a certain amount of sensual experience. And I'm talking about all the drugs. They all give you a sense of euphoria. Even as a depressant or as a stimulant, there's a certain amount of euphoria of not having any pain in your mind, or pain in your joints, pain in, of course we don't want pain, and emotional pain. So somebody has a breakup with their spouse, and so they go on a drinking bender, if they hadn't been doing it already, because of this reason or that reason. There's always reasons in life to want to drown out our sorrows, and it's those are options. Those are part of the human condition. They're not right and wrong to do, until somebody decides that they had enough of one addiction or another, or all of them. And even if they didn't necessarily arrive at the point of thinking, I've had enough of these addictions, so I want to go cold turkey on all of them, which is what happened to me, even though I wasn't really addicted to some things like other people are, I was a marijuana user. I fooled around with mushrooms a little bit in that year before I met Tiendo. I'd been an avid user of acid and stuff when I was in my teens, and I quit in my early 20s, and then started up again with marijuana in my mid-20s. And then I joined the classroom when I was 24. Became my vehicle. So it was a type of addiction, but it wasn't that major. I wasn't doing it every day, and it was so. And in terms of sexuality, the same kind of thing, in a sense. I wasn't so addicted to sexuality that I was, looking to have sex with everybody I met, kind of thing, in every circumstance, that, I wouldn't have any restraint at all in who I was with, and so I had a very limited sexual life. I had one partner for 5 years, and then I had another partner after I left the group for I don't know how many 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And so, that was the extent of But I'm not trying to get into the details of that because it's not necessary. But I recognized in the group when they were talking about having a sexual addiction, I didn't think I did. But anybody that knows that they get to a point to where they know they want to relieve that pressure because the hormones have built up, they're going to do it for the most part, right? And that's an addictive part of the nature. And you're not going to let anything stop you, even if you have to masturbate, right? So that's an addiction. And so when I joined the group, I knew that there was going to be no more sexuality. And I had no problem with that. And it was easy. For the first, couple of years, or at least, or more than that, I think it was like 2 years before, I think we were in houses the way I remember it. So it was like 5 years after we started started with Team Doe in 75. So it was like 1980, 81, 82, around there, when the way I remember it, maybe I don't remember it right, but I think I'm pretty close to it, because I can see myself standing in the kitchen, the Nutrilab. Actually, at that point, I don't know if we called it the Nutrilab. I guess we did. But, because the Nutrilab really started when we were still in campgrounds in the 70s and early 80s. Very early 80s. So, and I remember getting an instruction from Team Doe. I don't know how it happened, but whether they had a meeting about it, they probably did, but where they said that, I don't think this is on a tape, so it must have been like 81 or something. And they said, you've got to yes, you're required to be celibate to join the classroom and to stay that way in the classroom. But they didn't say anything about controlling your thoughts. That you weren't as celibate as you needed to be if you weren't actually controlling your thoughts and stopping those thoughts from happening. And I know when they said that, I knew that was part of the program. It wasn't like I had to read it somewhere. It's because my mind and the soul that was working with the mind of this vehicle, whatever was the source of it, well, primarily the soul, knows that that's the program, because it's not a moral thing. It's because there isn't that behavior in the next level. It's practical. It's a practical reality. It's evolutionarily the way it is. Even the idea of test tube babies is an evolution beyond the human condition as we know it. Because individuals aren't participating in animal behavior in order to reproduce. To the degree that, that the male provides the sperm, that's animal behavior to the next level. if they're providing it, by masturbation. So anyway, but then I didn't think that I had an addiction to it, and that's because I didn't realize it. There's a lot of things I didn't realize. Like I knew, but I didn't really have the experience, at least in this vehicle, to where I knew from experience with this vehicle. I probably knew from experience in the past incarnations, which souls have, as part of the program. Souls are brought back by the next level after they lose their vehicle to have a new vehicle to continue their lesson program of gaining strength. The whole program is designed to learn how to take over a vehicle, to gain strength, and to work for the next level. Deliver the information about the next level to other people. That's why it's such a big sin, in my opinion, to try to stop people from disseminating the information, thinking that only, like Mark and Sarah told us in a meeting we had with them in their lawyer's office in Phoenix a couple years ago. They said, why isn't our dissemination of the information enough? Totally missing the point of what the purpose of the dissemination project, who it's for. It's for everybody. But it's for the ones that believe it to give it to somebody else. If you don't give it to somebody else, your growth is going to be slower. Because you're not going to be you're not going to feel that mind coming through you and going to somebody else, and you're not going to have to deal with the influences that hate what you're saying, those thoughts, because you're not doing it. You're staying hidden. That's why when the classroom started, they sent everybody out to deliver the information to people. So we were walking around the town, looking for places to put the posters up, going into stores, at that time there were little tiny mom and pop health food stores everywhere. There weren't any big ones really, supermarket style health food stores that I was aware of. And I was in all the big cities. I mean, there were supermarkets, but they didn't have organic food and stuff like that. Those were called health food stores. I remember because there was one I used to go to in 1974, 3 and 4, in Newport, Oregon, where I lived. So it's like with everything for the next level, you can get a little bit of growth, and I don't know what the amounts are, it doesn't really matter. But you get some growth from hearing the word. And I think it even says that in the record books, that where they say that Jesus was the Word, and the Word was made flesh, and by consuming His words, consuming His behavior, having the same behavior, and then giving it to somebody else is the taking up of the cross, because it's not gonna be something that's popular. People aren't gonna praise you for talking about Tian-Do. Well, yeah, some people might think, but it's gonna be the people that have been already prepared to think of Tian-Do's teachings in a positive way. But for a lot of people, they're not going to get to that point. I mean, I'm not saying anybody in particular is not going to get to that point, because it's a free will. Anybody can change, as far as I know. If somebody can't change, well, that's not something I know about. I don't know if we can judge that. But we certainly want to try to have the point of view that even the people that do things against us can change. And like Jesus said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Because if they knew what they were doing by murdering him, they wouldn't have done it. But they didn't know who he was. They didn't recognize him. They didn't have that enough of that mind in them. They might have a little bit of that mind in them, but it wasn't enough for them to actually recognize his voice, his mind, his words, his ideas as something that they knew was something they had to pay attention to. I mean, didn't have to, but they wanted to. So they had to, in the sense that they knew that it was something beyond anything else they heard. And so they had to keep on, once they tasted it, they wanted to keep on tasting it, although the vehicle and other people can talk you out of it. The vehicle meaning, the thoughts you have that, we're bombarded with, that tell us, that that's ridiculous. Oh, what do you mean? It came from outer space. Jesus didn't come from outer space. He came from heaven. Well, heaven, the word actually means elevated areas above the earth. So, they said, they showed, that he lifted himself up somehow, and he ended up floating into a cloud and disappeared from their sight. So he's somewhere up there, somewhere in an elevated area up the earth, and that's the way he comes and goes, it was said. So I guess he's going to come back that same way. But see, what Christians lose sight of frequently is that him saying that he would return that same way was saying that he would be in a human vehicle walking on the earth again. He would be from the offspring of human. Well, and once again, I didn't get into the Revelation material yet. So the picture is always so big, and I know there's always potentially somebody new coming to the stream, and that's not even the reason. I'm not even consciously thinking, well, I've got to talk about this. It's just one thing leads to the next, and all right, I'll let that truck pass me, go ahead, instead of speeding up, because when I go slow like this, I don't really have to think about much else except for talking. I can just stay safe. Because our vehicles are programmed to even be aware of what we're doing when we don't even remember that we're doing it. You know, these vehicles are so far above AI, it's almost ridiculous to even make a comparison. Sure, there's some things that AI can do faster than the human, many things, okay, but those things aren't significant, really. I mean, sure they are when you have a job doing it, okay, you know, and you get paid for doing it, then they've got more significance. And if you like using the technology of computers and stuff, not just AI, but, you know, computers are all actually forms of AI. To think otherwise is, you know, I don't think is understanding what intelligence is. Because intelligence isn't that much, really. I mean, somebody can read a book and memorize it because they're really good at that. And then they can tell you everything that's in it. They can describe the concepts of science and blah, blah, blah. And then other people will say, wow, they're very intelligent because they can do that. And it's a form of intelligence, but it is kind of artificial because it's not from experience. That's what makes it artificial. Except for the experience of reading about something. But you don't actually have the skill to actually mix those chemicals together to form whatever it is that you're making. Like a new medicine or something, you know, whatever. And yeah, the artificial intelligence gains, its database gets bigger. But what I think maybe the hardest thing for AI to do is to decide what has more priority in its database. So if you ask it a question, and it might have 10 answers to it because of the type of question it is, how is it going to know which is the most important answer? Well, one way they can do it, and Google does this, by ranking, you know, browsers do it by ranking everything according to how many keywords are in that statement that have a match in the database. And then the ones that have the biggest match are the first ones to come up. And so that's how it decides. It's really not a decision. It decides to respond to a question with exactly what you were asking, based on those keywords, right? And how important those keywords are because of all the other people that asked that question using those keywords. So that's how it prioritizes answers. But it doesn't have any nuance, I don't think, unless that can be programmed into it also, which I don't know if it can or not. I've heard that it doesn't. That it's kind of a lackluster, like when they use it to write a script for a movie. They know that, yeah, it's got a basis. You know, they got a basic background for the script, but it takes a human to actually look at it and really make it into something that might be special, you know, or not been done before. Because the computer can only respond with what's been put into it, and it can only have what's put into it as what's been done before. Okay, so Revelation 12 starts off with, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Upon her head, a crown of 12 stars. So that means to me that she gave birth to 12 students into the next level. Now, are those the 12 disciples? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay? But that's what the crown represents in this passage. And moon, the sun represents, in astrology, the Father. It's one of his representations. Even though Saturn is the well, I don't want to get into all that different astrological interpretation. But and the mother is represented by the moon. In some representations, that's the way it plays out. With astrological interpretations, which, could have come from the next level. And as with all things, it's probably a mixture of, what the humans did with it and the space aliens did with it. But by and large, it was enough of a game that nobody would have necessarily put out any effort to try to change it from what was passed down through many generations, to distort it the way they did with Christianity and the way they did with Jesus' words were changed, and the way that Moses' things were changed. Anyway, so the moon is the lesser light and the sun is the greater light. So the greater light represents the woman, so that's talking about the Father, the Heavenly Father, the Father from the heavens, from outer space. And father is not a gender thing. So it's father meaning the head parent, what Tiendo would call the older member. Or in the context of Tiendo, Do's older member, and to the students of Do, because Do is their older member, then T would be their older member's older member, or grandfather. And Do would be the father to the students. Now, and that's what Revelation 12 is about, that soul represented by the moon, or the lesser light to the greater light, is birthed to the throne by T, by the greater light. at that time. Or it might not have been at the time that they came public, but I think it did, because it wasn't until the graduation that, in 1997, that Doe officially had given birth to students, even though T helped him start the development of those potential students before she left. Because she said, I'm here to just get you going, and I'm going back. See, people don't know this. Some people don't want to know it. They don't want to think it's true. It's difficult to think it's true. So if you can think it's true, then hold on to that feeling, that knowing, so that whatever beats on your door and tries to get you to change your tune back into more of a human endeavor, you'll be able to fight it off. And of course, asking for help for that strength to fight things off is part of the program too. I'm tired. I can feel my eyelids getting droopy, so I'm not going to continue the stream beyond getting to the. So if there's any comments you want to leave me, if you want to just copy them and put them in as a comment, that would really help me, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer any questions in length. It looks like there's not too much going on, so. Oh yeah, greetings from frozen Montana. I'm at my exit if Kathy Southwestern happens to be here. I'm at the Waffle House. All right, well, and the moon under her feet shows that translation of that word that's translated as feet, works better for the context of the way that message was deciphered, illustrated. But it's actually footstool is a more accurate term for that. So the moon is her footstool. In other words, the moon is the one who gives the footstool to the students to step up onto. Is him. He is the footstool. Doe is the footstool in this illustration. And this was the only Bible lesson we had on the book of Revelations 12:1, where Doe said that the woman was T and that the dragon was Lucifer. And the rest you can kind of figure out. And I'll talk more about it in the next few days as I drive home from work. Because I have to work pretty much every day. I took yesterday off. So Where's my house? It's almost at the end of the row. Okie dokie. Let me just see if there's anything really important in here. Hello, both of you. Kathy's not with me right this moment, but she's right inside the mobile home. I'm not mobile home, but motorhome. I see Jarway Aguilar, Mandujano, MW1 online, past midnight, yep. And FDVIB. Frozen Montana, right? Oh, okay. You're having trouble hearing? I guess Samuel Lawless. I don't know what to do about that right now. I'm in the car. It is harder to hear because of the road noise. Sorry about that, but I don't know if I can do any better than that. Stay well. Thank you, Samuel Lawless. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream, and I hope it's been somewhat helpful to some of you. Good night.